Good afternoon, everybody. Want to welcome you to today's Wednesday webinar on a Tuesday. This is Scott Clayson from TimeSolv, and I want to thank you all for joining us for our monthly webinar on the tips and tricks to get the most out of TimeSolv. I'm going to wait another minute or so and let people trickle in here and get themselves settled in for the webinar. So I'll be coming back on in about another minute or so. So hang tight, everybody. Okay, it looks like everyone, I think, has settled in and will be joining us. So good afternoon to everyone who's on the East Coast and Central Time Zone, like myself here in Minneapolis. Good morning to those who are in the Mountain Time Zone or out on the Pacific. Want to welcome you to our Wednesday webinar, and I want to thank you all as well for your flexibility, because I did have to switch the normal date we do this, which is usually the second Wednesday of every month, to today, Tuesday. I will be, for those that are out in California joining us here, TimeSolv is going to be attending the California Lawyers Association's annual meeting, which kicks off in Monterey on Thursday. So I am actually flying out for that event on tomorrow at around this time. So that's the entire reason why we had to switch the webinar from our normal Wednesday to today. So again, thanks to everybody for your flexibility. I know a couple people actually replied to me that this worked better for them attending today than tomorrow. So I'm glad it did at least work for some people. So once again, this is our monthly webinar that we do here at TimeSolv. My name is Scott Clayson. I'm the marketing director with TimeSolv. And for those who have not joined one of these webinars previously, we do these once a month where we essentially roll over and talk about the various tip of the week that we have sent out in the previous month. We send out a tip of the week email to all the firm administrators, usually on Mondays. Sometimes it gets to be Tuesday or Wednesday, but generally on Mondays, with some update or tip about TimeSolv that you may not have been aware of, or you might have learned at one point but didn't use for a long time. So I know how things go. If you don't use a feature set in software, you tend to forget about it until you then need it, and then you think that it doesn't exist, when in fact we do have those in place. So that's what this webinar is all about. We generally cover 4 to 5 topics, depending on how the calendar falls and how much information we need to get out to you. So this month, our webinar, we are going to cover, all of these are in fact new updates to TimeSolv, and features lately, and now meeting I was in to see what is going to be coming up in the next sprint, as we call it, that will be released probably middle of next week sometime. So always new stuff coming, fixes to existing stuff, and so on, which gets me to the first item that I want to talk about today. And this was in the tip of the week email that went out a couple of weeks ago. And that is if you all here on this webinar have a suggestion or you have a feature request that you'd like to pass along to us in a formal manner, how do you go about doing that? Well, we have created a suggestions portal that you can log into and record your idea, your request. You can also view requests that others have made, and you can upvote. If you see a request that's similar to or maybe you go to the suggestions portal and you see an idea that is the same exact one you had, simply upvote on it. And that really helps our developers in determining what to put next into development. It's part of the formula that is used to determine what needs to be worked on. It's not the entire formula, but it's definitely taken into consideration. Another meeting, speaking of that, this morning that we had, our product development team was showing us what are going to be the next items worked on in the next sprint. And it was on a spreadsheet, and one of the columns was how many upvotes some of these ideas had, and that helps us determine if we should put this into production. So how do we get to the suggestions portal then is the obvious question. So let me show you that, and you guys, I'll put this the link in the chat section of the webinar, which reminds me as well, I should cover some of the nuts and bolts here for today, for those of you that have not sat in one of these webinars before. We are going to wait till the end for questions and answers. There should be at the bottom of your screen, you should see an icon, or it might be at the top of your screen, a Q&A icon that you can simply click on to ask your question. And that is where I'm going to as well put the link here in just a second actually I'll put it in the chat section, the webinar chat, where you'll be able to see the link that I'm going to put for our suggestions portal. So I don't believe I can actually put it in the Q&A without there being a question available. So, okay, so without further ado, let's come over and take a look at our feature requests page. And I'm going to take this link right here, beginning part of it, and I'm going to put it in the chat section of this webinar, so you guys will have availability to see this. This link is also in our help section, on our help website, so you can access it in that way, as well as every tip of the week email now has a link to this page as well. So what you see here is where you can actually add a new suggestion that you are interested in making sure that we are aware of. This can include a bug that you have discovered. I mean, that does happen in software. It's not all software. We're not perfect here, so we do have bugs that need to be fixed periodically. So this is where you would add a new suggestion. We would suggest that before you add a new suggestion, that you search over here using some keywords for the idea that you'd like to document to see if it already exists. Because you can see right now, and you would be able to see over here, we have 39 different requests that have already been submitted. We've had this in place for maybe about a month now. You can also sort the requests by the most recent ones. So what it was the request that was just most recently submitted. Trending is going to show you the requests that have just had the most recent upvotes. And then the most popular is going to essentially sort these by the number of upvotes. And you can see here, how the upvotes, there's comments as well. To upvote, you could simply just put in your email address, hit next, and upvote on it right there. Or you could click on it, read the entire request, have some comments. You can see how many votes there were here, and you can upvote here as well. The only thing we ask you to do is identify yourself with your email address. Then the nice thing is, as our dev team is starting to work through these, and I was talking to our product team today, is they'll come through and you will be able to see what suggestions are planned. So you'll see like, oh, they are going to actually implement my idea, and what ideas have been shipped. In other words, they're in production and it's now live. Ones that, and this is not uncommon, where you may make a suggestion for a feature that already exists and you weren't aware of it. So we'll mark that as already exists. Or if because of the nature of the request that we've decided that we're not going to implement that. Excuse me. We also have one other category, And that is because one of the factors that comes into play when it comes to deciding which of these suggestions to implement is what ideas do we believe will get the widest adoption by our customer base. We have had over the years many suggestions that are very, very unique to that one particular firm. And we've had to make the tough decision, like we're not going to implement that change because it's just too unique to the software and to our other users. And it's just doesn't make sense from us from a business point of view to create a feature and put the work into something that is so unique to that particular customer. And oftentimes we'll try to find a workaround for that issue they may have. So we do have, however, the option that if there is a request that you absolutely positively need to have in place, where we call it a paid fast track request, where if you as a firm are willing to pay for a feature request, we'll talk about it and we'll let you know, like, here's the development time we feel is in place. It leaves that option open. You have that you have that ability. So anyway, that's how the suggestion portal works. And we hope that you grab that link that I put in the chat section of the webinar here. And it is also, as I mentioned, the link is on the help.timesolv.com. If you just go to our knowledge base right here, we have, I believe, excuse me, I think it's on the contact us. Oh, where did I put it? I thought it was down. I was told that it was down over here under our various trainings. We have the suggestion portal. So if it's not here, that's a problem, and we need to make sure that that does get added. So my apologies. We should have that suggestions portal here on the on our help section. So okay, good to know. I'll make note of that. All right, so let's move on now to our next topic that we have in hand. Okay, you guys all may have noticed this. Pretty easy to see in an update that came out several weeks ago, and that is we have updated the visibility to a timer if you are going to start a timer in real time when creating a time entry. A lot of people I know don't necessarily track their time in real time, which is really the best practices if you could. But if you do actually start a timer, let's see how that is going to show up here. So for example, I'm going to create a new time entry here. And let's just say it's Burnett, title, my closing. I have a task code required here. Okay, fine. And I'm going to start the timer. Hit save and new. Now, previously, there was like this pulsating bar here that showed you that the timer was running. We've changed that to now it's a spinning clock icon. I think it's a little easier to see that the timer is actually running. But more importantly, you can actually see the elapsed time up here. And no matter what page now you're on in TimeSolv, you'll see that elapsed timer. So if I then, come over and I'm doing something else, some other work on this particular matter, maybe I've gone to the place and closing, whatever, I'm putting in notes, I'm working on documents, whatever the case may be, I've navigated somewhere else within TimeSolv, you're still gonna see the timer over here. We also consider the fact that you may have started a timer, but it's been a while, it's been several hours, and you don't necessarily recall. You're doing a work for several clients in a day. Who did I start this timer for? So you may have noticed this when I did it the first time. As you roll over the elapsed time, it's going to show you the details and who the client it matters for, the task codes, any description, all of the information that you would need to know about that time entry. If you need to actually stop the timer, you can stop it from any page by clicking just on the actual spinning clock. So I'm going to click here to stop. Timer is stopped successfully. If I go back over to my time entry screen, you'll see I have that time marked here now. You know, 0.10 of an hour is only 1.5 minutes, so that rounded up to the 10th of the hour. The nice thing and then is you can, if I have a timer running here, let's say I'm going to start this timer. I already had 3 hours here. I'm going to add more time. You can see it picks up right from where the existing time was. Now, if I already have another time entry and I need to switch, phone rings, it's another client that I already have an existing time entry for, simply click on its icon. It's going to stop the one timer and start the other and pick it up, obviously, right where it came from. That always used to happen previously, but now you can visually see the elapsed time as it's happening. And then again, I can go back and forth as need be, and it'll just pick right back up from where it was. And then of course you can always still stop the timer down in the location where you could previously stop it, and that's right here. So that is the new way to visually see the elapsed time of any time entries that you are running a timer for, and the fact that you can see that elapsed time no matter where you are within the TimeSolv application. You don't have to be specifically on the time entry page. Okay, let's move on to our next topic. We've added the ability now to create as many originating professionals as needed to be associated with a matter. And let me show you how that looks. I know many firms will give professionals sometimes we call it a finder's fee, I mean, there's some firms that are large enough, they have their own marketing person who maybe gets a percent or a commission of the revenue that from the business that they bring in. They don't do any of the work on the matter because they're maybe not even a lawyer, but they're in charge of bringing in that new business, and they get a cut of that revenue. Previously in TimeSolv, and I'm just going to go into any matter here. Previously, under the General tab, we had two different rows over here. We had the Responsible Professional, and then we had one called the Originating Professional. Responsible Professional is still here. You can still choose a Responsible Professional and decide if you want them to receive a commission on all revenue that is brought in for this particular matter. They may not do all the work. You could farm out the work to others at the firm, but because they are designated as the Responsible Professional, they will have, you can give them a commission percentage if you'd like. We found that several firms were asking us, hey, we have more than one originating attorney. How do we go about doing that? Well, we didn't have that. We only had the ability to designate one originating professional for each matter. Now we've changed that, and we have a whole different new tab over here called Originators that you can select here. I'm going to leave this. Called Originators, where you can come in here, select the professionals within your firm. I have all my professionals here that are timekeepers. Select them, give them a commission percentage if you'd like. Say it's 2%. Hit save. There's the list of them here. You can edit or delete, and then I can just add more. I could add, as many as my little heart desires, and have as many originating professionals as needed with the commission percentage. Then when you run your reports on commissions, you can do it by the originating professionals, and it'll roll this out. So it's a nice feature for those that might have multiple layers of people who receive a commission for bringing the business to the firm. It's a nice flexibility for a firm, especially a little bit of larger firm who might have those different layers. Okay. Let's talk about the next new feature that we just put into place recently, and that is the ability to apply a discount percentage at the matter level. Now, what does that mean exactly? Somebody was asking if we could show the report also. Yeah, running the report for originating professional, I'm assuming. So if you go under reports here, there is a revenue and commissions report.
and you could run it. There's lots of different ways you can run it, but more specifically, you could run it by the originating professional. Or you could run it by the specific client and matter and so on. So I don't really have any much information in here that if I ran a report, I don't think it would generate anything, but you can, include lots of different things in the specific revenue and commissions report. That's the report that you want to run. And again, if you have any specific questions about generating this report, please get a hold of support or your success manager, and they could go through the details of how to run this, because I know that is a popular report every month, because a lot of firms do rely on commissions to pay their attorneys. Okay, so let's come back to the ability to apply a discount at the matter level. So let me back up and let's start from the normal way in which one could apply a discount to an invoice or a matter. So if you are looking at draft invoices, and let me just create some drafts here. Should be able to, this might pull one or two invoices potentially, I'm not really sure. Okay, so I have multiple matters here. Actually, I'm going to avoid that, and I don't want to do it as a multiple matter. So let me go under that particular client, since he's the only one I seem to have time entries for the month. And I'm going to unconsolidate the matters, so they will show up in their own separate invoices. It's a good reminder for anybody who needs to ever consolidate their matters and don't realize that, yes, you can choose to consolidate or not consolidate all the matters that you might be working on for a client onto one invoice. Or you could do 4 matters onto one invoice and then have the 5th matter, if you have a 5th matter, be a whole separate invoice if you need to. Pretty easy to do when you go and look. When you're viewing a client, just click on the matter tab, and you can then choose which matters for that client you want to have consolidated. Okay, so let me try this again. And we'll show you the old way of, I shouldn't say the old way, the way still exists. But I just want to kind of level set here. Previously, if you wanted to apply a discount for this matter, place and closing, you had to do it for every single, at the invoice level. And you would come over here, select the actual dollar amount on this invoice, come over to the totals, and put in whatever discount you wanted. 5%, 10%, whatever the case may be, and it would apply that discount to the totals. And then it would just show up on the invoice. Easy to do, right? But we had a lot of firms that said, I've negotiated with a client that I'll always be giving them a 10% discount, and I want them to be able to see that every time that I am giving them a discount. So the request was, can we just set, when we're creating the matter, that we're always going to give a discount, and it'll automatically be applied here when we generate the draft invoice. So that's what we've changed now. So what you can do is, when you go to an actual matter, and we're going to go to the same one, I'm in the client Burnett title, the matter is place and closing, and I go under my invoice settings. There is now a new row under other settings where you can designate a discount for every invoice you're ever going to do for this particular matter. And it's going to be, let's just say it's a 5% discount that let's give a bigger discount. It's going to be 10%. And I hit save. Now, when I come over and generate that invoice, I'm going to void out this invoice here. When I go to create a draft invoice now for Burnett title, and I'll use the beginning of this month, it's already given the discount. So if I click on the amount here and I go to my totals, that 10% discount has already been applied. I didn't have to do anything here. You could change it right here if you need to and update it. Essentially, it's just inserting this discount, which has always been available to give automatically for this matter because you designated it to do so. So it's a nice way, and I know there's a lot of firms that do potentially have to, they have negotiated discounts for any and all matters that, for a particular client. This is the way where you don't have to remember that I have to give a discount to, Burnett title for the place and closing matter. Instead, you just build it right in at the beginning. And then every invoice you ever create will have that discount already applied. And again, just a refresher, that will show then when you, it's very easy to see in the totals of the invoice, the 5% discount or the 10% discount, whatever the case may be, that was applied. Oh, I'm having a problem generating my preview here. There we go. So you can see it clearly shows the 10% discount of $87.05. And this is really what is really important for, I know, a lot of the firms, is to be able to make sure the client understands this is the discount that I gave you. So it's laid out there. The question is, does the discount show when it imports into QuickBooks as both the sales and a negative in the sales income level on the chart of accounts, or is it just going to be the balance of 783 without knowing that you gave a 10% discount? That's a really good question. Honestly, I have no idea. I'm going to have to ask that question to our support team. I don't know QuickBooks well enough, and I'm not going to pretend to, so I don't want to give you an answer that is wrong. So Lynn, I will find out that answer, because it's a really good question, and I will send you an update, and I'll send an update to everyone who's on the call here, because that is a good question to be able to understand, you know, what discounts you gave and have that tracked in QuickBooks as well. Okay. So that is applying the discount at the matter level. Now, one last thing I do want to show you all is something that actually hasn't come out on a tip of the week yet. We have done a soft launch of a new integration with Microsoft Office 365. And we are going to be pushing out a lot more information about this in the coming weeks, because there were a few little kinks we had to work out with this integration. But for those of you here attending who use Office 365, so you manage your email and items like that through an online version of Office 365, this is going to be a fantastic integration for you, because it essentially has created now a whole different way to manage or to create time entries. So let me show you what this looks like. Now, I don't have the full Office 365 myself. I do have, you know, I do have an Outlook.com specific email address where I can access my email through Outlook.com. I'm kind of an old timer, and I use an actually desktop installed version of Outlook. But even with that, I can still access my email if needed via Outlook.com. And of course, now this one has ads serving up, and you can see I was over at Warby Parker looking for new glasses recently, and now they're giving me a bunch of ads. So let me show you how this integration with Office 365 works and with Outlook. So there's a couple of steps to this process. It's important to note that this is fully supported for the online version of Office 365. If you have a desktop installed version of Outlook, it may work, but it's not fully supported, and our dev team can't guarantee that it's going to work exactly how it's designed to work. So first step in the process is to you have to come back into TimeSolv itself, go into your account, and go to integrations. When you go there, you'll notice a tab called Office 365. And it'll actually there looks like there is a different, oh, this is the how-to. So I'm sorry. This will give you the directions if you ever need to, where you can install it via the desktop. It should work okay. But then there's the web version, which is the more popular version. I'm going to copy this URL. So that's what you want to do. Copy the URL to, because you're essentially going to create what's called an add-in, add-in, sorry, that's the word, add-in into your Office environment. So I'm going to copy this URL, over here, copy. I'm going to go back into my Outlook. I'm going to open any email. It doesn't matter what email you open. You just need to get into an email. When you're viewing an email in the web version, you will see an icon right over here called Get Add-ins. It's a little, it's 3 boxes and a plus sign. You want to click on that. And this is going to take you to Microsoft's Outlook store for all these various add-ins that you could potentially get for your Outlook. I'm going to come over here to this left column and click on My Add-ins. And down underneath here, it's going to allow you to add custom add-ins, where it says you can install an add-in from a file or a URL. Well, we have a URL, right? So we're going to add that. So we're going to click on that, where it says Add a Custom Add-in. Come down here to Add from URL, and I'm going to paste that URL that I just grabbed out of the application. And I'm going to click OK. I'm going to click Install, and there is my TimeSolv now add-in. I'm going to close this out. Now, when I'm in viewing an email, if I want to start a timer to record time, my add-in is available to do so from TimeSolv right here within this environment. So I could click on these 3 dots here. It says More Actions. Come down here and you'll see all your add-ins that you have. In this case, there's TimeSolv and there's OneNote. Anything else you may have added in. Click on TimeSolv. And here I'm able to create a time entry. I can start a timer to run it. I'm going to reset this because I was running it earlier. I could start a timer here right now because I'm going to be working on an email. And then I could reply to this person, do all my email work and so on. Here's the caveat here though. Don't worry about filling in your matter and client and task codes and descriptions just yet. Because here's what happens. If I hit reply here, for example, notice how that window closed out. Like, where is it? Where is the add-in? I'm going to do my work. This is a Microsoft function, not something that TimeSolv has any control over. I can access that add-in anytime I want from these, again, these 3 More Action buttons, okay? You would think it'd be up here. This is a little deceiving, but it's down here where you're hitting send. You can click on this, go to the add-in. That timer is still running, so the clock never stopped. Again, I'm working on the email, I'm done with it. I want to stop the timer. Now I'm going to click on it to stop it. I could manually add more time if I needed to. Now if I double click or start typing, here's all my clients and matters. So I could select, you know, here, let's do that same Burnett title. I could put in the task codes, billable type, just like any other time entry. Even has your abbreviations that you could use if you wanted to. And then I'm going to hit save. Time entry is saved. If I come back over here now, come to my time entries for today, you can see here is that time entry. And I could add more time, I could edit, do as I see fit. So essentially you now have another way to make a time entry without having to leave your Outlook. So anywhere you go, again, anytime you navigate away from where when you've opened it, Microsoft's going to make you open it up again. So if you come back to your emails, you can't access it from this page here where you're viewing your list of your emails. You have to actually be in an email to access the add-ins. In this case, again, I'm viewing this one. I can click on these 3 dots, More Actions. This is where I can open up and, you know, create another time entry. I can also file this email to a specific client and matter, and that would create, if I do, you know, Burnett file email, it's going to create now a history of that, which I should be able to find here. Nope. I'll have to show you guys all this in another one. I haven't tested this one. It should be, it files the emails away together in a folder. But again, mine's not set up, I don't think, properly for this. So it's not behaving the way it should. So that's with the email, of creating a time entry right within your email. Here's another great way to create a time entry in your Outlook, and that is from the calendar. You can make a time entry, you can make a calendar event into a time entry in TimeSolv here in your Outlook calendar. So let's do that right now. Say that you're going to have a Friday meeting with a client. It's going to be a lunch meeting, and you add it to your calendar. Oh, that was, excuse me, Friday. So I'm gonna, this is lunch meeting with Burnett title. It's gonna be, here's the date. I already know it's gonna be the 11th. It's gonna be from noon to 1:30. Description, discuss matter and strategy moving forward, whatever the case may be, okay? Now, from here, you could either just save this as a normal, you know, hit save and it's a normal, you know, calendar entry, or from here right now, again, these three dots for more actions, click on it. Here's our add-in. Notice now we have already automatically have an hour and 30-minute time entry created for this date. I could select, and remember it says the time entry must be saved before saving the event. I could select then the matter, Burnett title, Clayson closing. If I want to have this description be the time entry description, simply click on fill from event and it's going to give me the title and the description. Again, I have the ability to see my abbreviations. I'm going to hit save here. Oh, required field. I need the task code. Sure. Okay. I'm going to hit save. Time entry is saved, and I'm going to hit save here. I come back over into TimeSolv. I'm going to hit a little refresh right here. And here on the Friday the 11th, I already have that time entry created from that event. Now, obviously, this is now a standalone time entry, no longer associated with this event here in your Outlook calendar. So if this gets canceled for some reason, or for whatever the case may be, if you need to edit this and delete it, like, oh, it changed or whatever, you know, you can discard it. It's going to be gone. I don't use, so did I discard it? Oh, delete. Okay. If I delete it, it's still gonna, it doesn't automatically delete it over here in TimeSolv. That time entry is still going to exist over here. So you've created a time entry, it's rocked over here. If you need to edit it here, then you can. But again, this is a time saver big time, and we've had many people who have asked us, could I create a calendar entry as a time entry? Yes, now you can. You simply, as you're creating it, as you're making that event in Outlook, make it a time entry at the same time, because you know you're gonna, this is billable time. Great new function, great new way in both your email and your calendaring in Office 365 to create time entries. Makes a lot more flexibility. Very excited about this, this new feature as we continue to build it out. I know one of the things that we've talked about doing, and it's being considered right now, there's no guarantee it's going to be built, is to actually create then a sync between the calendar, your Outlook calendar here, and the TimeSolv calendar. TimeSolv calendar is something that we don't push a whole lot because it's been basically a closed calendar, and these days people need their calendars to integrate with lots of different systems. So the idea that we could take these calendar events from your Outlook and populate them here in TimeSolv, and vice versa, where if you created a time entry here, or excuse me, a calendar event here, associated it to a client and matter, that it would automatically populate your Outlook calendar would be a great function that we're going to be looking at. Don't know the feasibility of it. Probably my product team would probably slap me on the wrist for actually just even bringing it up. So we're hoping that some of this can come down the line a little bit. But we wanted to show you this Office 365 integration. If you have any questions, please get a hold of support. You can also, as I mentioned, come under here to Account Integrations. It does show you how you can install it on the desktop or the web. The desktop is a little different. You have to come into the Get Add-in section and do it in a similar way, still add it from the URL and so on. But it should be functioning fairly well in that fashion. Let's get back down. Yeah. Okay. Okay, we covered a lot of ground.
any questions here? We're going to wrap this up. That's the 5 items we wanted to show you today. I will be more than happy to answer some questions. Lynn, I already have your question about the discount and QuickBooks set aside, so I can ask our support team once I get off this call or get off this webinar. I'll be sure to get back to you on that. But are there any other questions that you all might have? You can use either the chat window or the Q&A to ask your questions. Well, I don't see anybody typing here, so I'll give you another minute or so to think of a question you might have. Again, let me show you, so one more time, because there will be a recording of this I'll send out in case you didn't grab it. The suggestions portal, whoop, sorry, timesolv.ideas.aha.io is the URL that you can use to access the portal. And I'll be sure, as I said, I thought it was on our support site, a link to the portal. I'll be sure that that gets added. Okay, well, I don't have any other questions that have come in, so I want to thank everybody for joining me today. I will send out a link with the recording of this so you could revisit as you need to. And I hope that you all will join me again as we do our our November Wednesday webinar, which will take place on November 13th, Wednesday, November 13th. And again, I thank everybody for your flexibility in joining me today here on Tuesday. And for those of you that might be out in California, if you're attending the California Lawyers Association annual meeting, please stop by and say hello to us at our booth. We'd love to chat with you all. So with that, I'll let everyone get back to the grind of the work that has to get done, and we will talk next month. Thanks, everybody, and have a great rest of the week and a great month.